before they vacate or after they vacate that premises. So that was really the hospital, the health department, the Salvation Army, criticalness, and United Way saying, we've got to do something about that. That could burst the bubble, so to speak, of infections. So we were able to come up with a plan, the plan being the EMS would take the client directly to the room. The Salvation Army would pay, United Way reimbursing, of course. The Salvation Army would be bringing meals and dropping them off, so the client wouldn't have to leave the room. And the health department calls and does check-ins on that individual. Brunswick Christian Recovery Services, as part of their social enterprise, started a CDC. And so we're able to get them to come in and sterilize the room after those individuals leave. So this was a critical piece of not increasing the level of infection in our community. And we did that very quickly as a community. So I'm very proud of that collaboration and all of the people that have gone into that. The toughest part was finding a hotel that would say, yes, we will take a COVID-19 positive individual. So that took a lot of negotiation and a lot of work on behalf of United Way, the health department, and the EOC in New Hanover. So we managed to make that happen. The next thing that we saw was a strong plea, from the shelter saying, hey, this is a disaster waiting to happen. We've got a disaster already, but we can't social distance these individuals. There's no way we can do that. And so with a lot of leadership in the community, the city, the county, the United Way, Encino, Cape Fear Collective, we all got together and said, hey, enough is enough. We've got to decompress these shelters. We can't be part of the problem. We've got to be part of the solution. And the United Way kicked in $25,000. The city and county both matched. Encino infused Good Shepherd immediately to just get this started. And then we've been sustaining it. So what we've been able to do is, during the critical time, move out all the vulnerable citizens from Good Shepherd and Salvation Army into another separate facility from the other one that has the COVID-19 positive individuals. We were also able to accommodate a water main break at Link when they had to evacuate people for 2 days. And so we were able to contain those folks and then send them back. You may or may not be aware, there's also a huge domestic violence surge right now. And so that worldwide has become a huge issue. So we were able to pay for some undisclosed locations, not the same locations. And, I don't even know where these individuals were staying. And I think that's a good thing because, the confidentiality in that type of issue is very important. But we were able to put those individuals up and pay for it through this initiative as well. And I'm pleased to say that given the point in time count for homelessness, we're looking at less than 1% infectious of this epidemic with our homeless population. That's virtually unheard of. And I believe I've always believed in this community. I've always believed it's innovative. I've always believed it's got some of the most talented people in it for its size. And we did a lot of things that were incredible. The next thing we did with the Disaster Coalition was we realized that volunteerism has changed, that reality has changed, right? Everything's virtual. We're all starting to learn. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just learning how to Zoom. So, this is something that we're all learning. And we decided to launch a platform early called Share Cape Fear. And that's something that allows individuals to search for a car. Right? You can search their Amazon wish list. So typically during a disaster, pandemic or otherwise, people just start sending things, right? It can become a problem, right? You've got too much of this, you got to warehouse it, you don't have enough of this. And so agencies now can have a wish list of exactly what they need and when they need it. And people know when it's been filled or not, go straight to them. There's no warehousing. And also we can do virtual volunteerism. So Share Cape Fear was a whole nother thrust. And that was Cape Fear Collective, United Way, and New Hanover Disaster Coalition, which United Way is the fiscal agent for that, but we raise money separately for it. And, we've been able to maneuver in all those fronts. But when you look at the community, I mean, it's pretty clear. Most of you are, I've seen the faces on here. Most of you are attendees at half the events that just haven't happened, right? They haven't happened, right? These were fundraisers. These were revenue producers that simply did not happen. And so we've got a lot of nonprofits that are trying to figure out, how they're going to survive, during this time. And the PPP loans that have come out, and Live Oak was excellent at helping with that process for nonprofits in particular. And so many other banks were just wonderful about that. First National, Truist, they all jumped in and worked as hard as the service providers have, which, these folks have, I just know a lot of them, and they needed applause as well. But just to make it happen for all these nonprofits so that we can not lay people off. But everyone's having to change tactics. Everything from just like the restaurants, right? If you're a food pantry, there's pickups, or Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, for example. They had to stop using the same age volunteers and start recruiting younger folks that were less at risk. And I know at least one of our staff members is going there to volunteer to help fill that gap. But everyone's changed the way they've been doing business, right? And so it's been a big shift. A lot of fundraisers have taken a hit. We're also seeing a surge of need, right? So a typical food program is now needing about 30% more. Even some that have financial resources are having trouble sourcing food. We were able to get U.S. Foods to reallocate food to some of our local nonprofits because the access to food was an issue in itself, not just the resources. But we're in a time where innovative solutions are needed. Lots of companies are stepping up and adapting and changing the way they do business to help with these issues. But we've also got a surge in domestic violence. The folks having to stay at home in close quarters constantly, and unemployment. There's a lot of issues. I'm sure Bethany could speak a little bit to the unemployment part of it, but there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with now that we see immediately, but down the road there's other implications. For example, United Way does workplace campaigns, and so we've had to re-estimate our uncollectible rates based on unemployment, and so that's at least 100,000 less that we're going to be able to bump into our regular partner relationship. So that is my report on the state of affairs. Everyone is doing a lot more with a lot less and a lot differently. I will say we have a strong community. I believe we'll get through this together. And I've seen a lot of innovation, and I believe in this community, and I know we can get through this, and we will be one of those communities that gets through it more gracefully than any other.
Tommy, thank you very much. We really appreciate your being here. Let me remind our folks again that the way to, excuse me, the way to ask a question is to have your participants window open and hit the little blue hand to raise your hand. And if you do that, we'll call on you and get an answer from Tommy. And after Tommy, we're going to hear from Rhonda Bellamy of the Arts Council to talk about the impact on nonprofit arts organizations. So are there any questions for Tommy at this point? I'm not seeing any right now. Let's give a few more seconds if you have a question for Tommy. Okay, Lynn Boney has a question. Lynn, would you unmute yourself, please, and then ask your question? Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. Tommy, I'm astounded at the work you all have been able to do. The way you've been able to keep the COVID down is astounding. I mean, I'm almost speechless. Thank you. Of course, thank you. But that's amazing.
I appreciate that. I wish I could attribute it just to what we've done. It's taken a whole community. It's taken everyone working in the United Way, and not just United Way. It's taken a lot of partners that people you all know and trust, working around the clock to make that happen. You know, we're really here just to facilitate that effort and put in any kind of effort it takes to fill a gap. And I appreciate you noticing that. It's to me, it's also very, I mean, it's astounding. I'm so proud to be a citizen of this area and part of the solution.
Tommy, we have another question here. This is,
oops, sorry.
Sorry. We have a question from Jane Burnback. Jane, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
I did. Hi, Tommy, how are you?
Not bad at all. How about yourself?
I'm fine. I have a statement from Good Shepherd, not a question. Of course, we're in the front lines with you and just want to offer our gratitude for the help that we received from United Way in the city and the county. We have been doing this work since early March and moved all of our women and families from the shelter to a healthy motel program. I'm happy to say we moved a lot of those folks from the motel to permanent housing of their own. And I just wanted to this has nothing to do with me. As you know, I'm the fundraiser for Good Shepherd. I just bring in the money, but we have an amazing staff here, and Good Shepherd has had a record-breaking year. We have returned to housing over 300 men, women, and families with children this year, regardless of the pandemic, the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. So it really does take a community working together, and we are very proud of the fact that we have had no cases, positive cases here at Good Shepherd, and we are working really hard to keep our guests and our staff and our limited number of volunteers right now healthy and safe. So I just want to commend you for the community support, and this has been quite an interesting ride, but we have stayed committed to our mission, and I think we can all be really proud of the fact that the homeless community, and remember, these are folks just like you and I, they put the pants on the same way we do, have really been rallied around during this time, and we have not ignored their needs, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Jane. And we have also from Albert Corbett. Albert, go ahead with your question for Tommy Taylor, please.
Tommy, I commend you for all the work you've done. One important point that I want to bring out, been on the advisory board of Salvation Army, very much indebted to all the good work that Good Shepherd and others are doing. And the wonderful thing that has been brought out and is happening now in this community is the partnership between Good Shepherd and the Salvation Army, and another one also And they have really worked together beautifully. And I believe that has accomplished as much as working with the United Way to help, particularly with food distribution, homelessness, and it's making a difference. It's still a great need in this community. And Tommy, maybe one other thing is, what do you see going forward if this continues on for several more months, which it could? What do you see your greatest need is going to be?
So, outbreaks. What I really think we're going to need is a strong push in the early fall to make sure that fundraising just doesn't drop off for all these agencies. We're going to need to make sure that just the base levels that we had before the need increased by 30% across the board. We need to keep folks motivated. We need to make sure the people that weren't affected, that got a stimulus, realize that there are people that have been affected that are no longer giving. The need's greater than ever. Everyone that's affected is just like you. It's not about their choice or circumstances, and we need to all be cognizant that this isn't timeout for nonprofits. This is an acceleration of what they've already been doing. It already was after Florence, honestly, and it's still been a struggle. But unlike Florence, there's not a healthy community to draw from during this disaster. So we're not going to see this huge influx of funding from outside to deal with this. We're going to have to come together and say, all right, how many of us are willing to give till it hurts just a tad and get through this together and just be here for our neighbors. I think people just need to remember this isn't time out. For a lot of people, it feels like time out. The way we work is different. Everything we're doing is different. But for nonprofits and service providers, this is prime time. This is overdrive. And they need the fuel behind them to do that. And it's going to take a generous community to fuel that.
Thank you.
Eric, I don't see any other questions being raised, so I think it's time to introduce our next guest.
Good enough. Lynn Boney's going to do that chore. Lynn, jump on it.
Lynn, there you go.
You can hear me, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay, great. Rhonda Bellamy, my friend. Let me read you her bio. Rhonda is the founding executive director of the Arts Council of Wilmington, New Hanover County, formerly an award-winning news director, anchor, and talk show host of 20-plus years. She's recently launched, and I'm sure you've heard, Around Town with Rhonda Bellamy on WHQR, public media. A co-founder of the Black Arts Alliance, Inc., Rhonda established the organization's signature North Carolina Black Film Festival, which has honored her with its Lifetime Achievement Award. She, in addition to acting and writing, the mother of two, spends time with her 4 grandchildren. So Rhonda, take it away.
Thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you about the impact of COVID on the arts community. As you know, the Arts Council is the designated county partner to the North Carolina Arts Council, a board on which Lynn served for several years. We also have economic development relationships with both the city of Wilmington and New Hanover County. New Hanover County in particular stepping up in a big way, and I owe that to Commissioner Rob Zappel, who I know is a member of this particular group. Our mission is to support artists and arts organizations through innovative public-private partnerships that support jobs, stimulate commerce, and showcase the region as an arts destination. That had been fairly easy to do prior to COVID-19. The impact has been immediate and devastating. As Tommy mentioned, nonprofit organizations which serve as part of our base, we also represent for-profit organizations, and they are in dire straits as well. For many organizations, they're looking at 2021 before they resume. And that's, you know, if we don't have a hurricane or some other event, widespread event as we've had. We also administer the Regional Artist Project Grant. That's a grant we administer for New Hanover, Pender, Brunswick, Columbus, and now Bladen counties that will allow us to get money into the hands of artists as soon as possible. We will have about $25,000 in funding that we'll be able to grant out to artists in the region. As Tommy mentioned, fundraising is a challenge. Many arts organizations had major events on the books, the largest of which, you know, is the North Carolina Azalea Festival, having to cancel that. So all of that spring fundraising is gone in one fell swoop. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm an eternal optimist, and the Arts Council continues with some major projects, one of which includes the commissioning of public art at Wilmington International Airport. We will manage $250,000 in public art grants this year. Also, we have the Wilmington Rail Trail, thanks largely to Paul Lawler, who I saw was on this call as well. This is a plan to create a pedestrian plaza on an underused rail bed that starts at Water Street, is maintained by Cape Fear Community College up through about 3rd Street, and then we have it from there to McCray Street. So we're excited about that. Of course, the community engagement portion of that was eclipsed by COVID-19, but getting our feet back on the ground with that in terms of reaching out in any way we can to encourage public participation in this public project. And so that's just briefly what we're dealing with here at the Arts Council, and I'm happy to entertain questions.
Rhonda, thank you very much. I want to apologize to this entire group. If you heard me saying something on top of Rhonda, I did not mean to do that, but I've been having a computer problem today and I had to get some things restarted. So I think we're back on track now. Again, we will ask you to go to the participant screen if you have a question for Rhonda. And once you open that screen, you'll see your name up near the top. Press the blue hand and we'll call on you for your question for Rhonda or comment. Anyone? Well, President Eric, I'm not seeing any hands go up, so I will turn it. Oh, here's one from Steve Coggins. Steve, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Rhonda. Thank you for the presentation. When do you think some of these performances are going to get underway in the social distancing within, say, Wilson Center and elsewhere?
Well, I think that we're looking at a whole paradigm shift in terms of financing for the arts. So Shane told me recently that through June, he's lost about $2 million. With social distancing saying that he can only use, let's say, 50% of the Wilson Center, then he has to find performances that he can bring in that can be funded by 50% of, what he has.
Yeah, small sets, so to speak, or
very, very
not
small
big sets. Yeah.
Because the social distancing, many people, and rightfully so, think only of the audience, but the performances, like our symphony, when are we going to be able to have 65 people on a stage again in close proximity? So it is the audience as well as the artist. And I think until we all get a better sense of when the social distancing will be eased enough for us to have as close to capacity of what we had before, we're going to see some real changes.
I think the English translation is nothing is scheduled right now.
No, our arts organizations are saying they're pushing all the programming to 2021.
Okay.
Now you have some, for example, the Wilson Center now has a drive-in series that they're doing. They're going to use their big parking lot and they have a drive-in series. So you've seen some organizations that have made the pivot, just to have some money coming in, but it's going to be a while.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda. President Eric, I don't see any more hands being raised for Rhonda, so I'm going to turn it
We'll
back.
move on then to our member check-in session. This is a time when members can report on how they're doing, as well as we progress through this pandemic. Anything about any new things that you're learning, or any adjustments you've made with businesses as they reopen and adjust those restrictions. You want to add those comments? Let's have them now.
And again, the way to do that would be to raise your hand in the participants window so that we'll know who to call on. Susan Harrell. Susan, please unmute yourself.
Thanks. I don't have a COVID related or new times thing to say, but I do want to consider joining our committee. Of our members' commitment would only be to do a month of invocations. So if you are interested, I will put my email in the chat box right now. Please consider helping with this part of our club. Thank you.
I see Dave Berkheimer. Dave, unmute and go right ahead. Well, I thought I saw Dave. Okay, I guess he decided not. Any other people have something to report? We'd love to hear from you. Steve Yates. Steve, please unmute and go right ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend President Eric and the board of directors for staying diligent and connected with the Zoom program. I think I get a lot of feedback from our membership just through personal email, making positive comments. And if I had the permission, I would forward it to everybody, just so that you'll know that your efforts are appreciated. I hope that each of us will encourage our membership. You know, we're getting an average of 53, 60 people a week, which is probably pretty good under the circumstances. But I hope everybody will take the time to join us next week as we congratulate Eric on his definitely challenging year. And then welcome Robbie into his upcoming challenges as well. I think it's important that we get behind our leadership in this club. We'll get through this thing. We just don't know when, but I think it's important for people to get the smart comments and all that. So thank you for letting me share my 2 cents.
Well said, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. I see Dave Berkheimer. Dave, unmute and go right ahead. Dave, are you there?
Sorry about that, technical difficulties.
I know all about that. Go right ahead, Dave.
Now.
Dave, you're on. Okay, Dave, if you want, you could put your question in the chat, and one of us, or I'll read it out for you. We're having trouble picking you up here, but thanks for that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just 2 quick things. One, a comment. The COVID has caused me to do something that I was thinking about doing anyway. I'm not going to be reopening my office. if someone needs some office furniture, call me quickly. My last day in the office is probably Thursday. And my question is the flag ceremony. What's the latest on the flag ceremony at the Rotary Wheel?
We're waiting on hearing back from government health officials about when we can have a big gathering. So the board has talked about having, then would we have the opportunity to wrap it around a couple of major national holidays as we were trying to do before. But anyway, right now we're waiting and seeing that. I think our commitment is still strong to doing that. And we want to do that as soon as possible. I think the electrical contractor that had donated the installation of lights there. We've been in touch with him, and that's still on go. So we'll have the lights put in place, and not only will they be there for the Wheel of Honor whenever we can have that done, but they'll be there for the city to use for any other nighttime events that might be held at the Rotary Wheel. So we're still looking forward to it.
Good.
Eric, I don't see any more hands being raised.
Okay, well, I've got a special request from Don Atkins, who said he wants 45 seconds. So start the countdown, 45, 44, 43. Go, Don.
Let me turn my mic on first. We've, in my 8 years and as a member of this club, we've faced some challenges. Jake Kapner in 2001, in our meeting on September the 11th, held that meeting. Most of our members attended because you do on Tuesday at 1:30. During my year, one of the speakers we had, a state senator who's passed away, but made a unkind word meeting. And we faced some feedbacks on that. But Eric, I just want to say, I don't think any of us could have done as good a job as you've done this year in charge of this club. You should be congratulated.
Well, thank you. But I'm not going to increase your pay.
Well, you keep me on the salary.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll keep you on the same salary that you've been earning. So anyway, thank you, Don. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. I couldn't tell whether that was a thumbs up or a middle finger, but anyway, I appreciate all of them. Do we have anything else? If not, we're going to adjourn in our usual way of saying the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Hello? Unmute everybody. We're going to do the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Second,
is it fair to all?
Third,
Will it feel good, will and better?
Fourth,
will
it
it
be beneficial to all?
hey, yeah. See ya.
Thank you.
Great job, Eric.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric.
Robbie.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
Gotcha, Robbie.
We got you back.
Y'all stick around for next month.
Okay, bye-bye.
See ya.
Hey, everyone.